The opening scene features Preston Waters, an 11-year-old boy who lives with his parents and two older brothers. Preston is constantly bothered by his 16-year-old brother, Damien, and his 15-year-old brother, Ralph. It appears that they have recently taken over his bedroom to store a computer system for their small business. Fred, their working father, also supports his older sons while asking the youngest to compromise. Preston is unhappy with the way he's treated, but he's powerless to change anything. Later, Preston goes to the Cliffside Fun Park to celebrate the birthday of a friend named Butch. However, he can only afford the kiddie rides, unlike his friends, because his father only gave him $10. The kids make fun of him because he doesn't have enough money. Preston's family is not impoverished, but his father is frugal with money and wants his children to learn how to save money. The following morning, Preston's older brothers leave for the baseball game. Preston wishes to join them as well, but he lacks the funds to purchase the necessary tickets. Fred explains the importance of saving if he wants to have fun, but the kid claims he can't save because he doesn't work. Following this, his mother hands him an envelope which appears to be his grandmother's advanced birthday gift. Upon opening it, he finds a blank check. Unaware, Preston believes it's useless because there's no amount written. His father then fills the amount with $11, which he considers to be a reasonable amount. When the boy expresses his dissatisfaction, his father claims that the money will grow to $1 million with proper interest. That night, Preston tests the theory on his computer and discovers that his $11 will take at least 300,000 years to grow into $1 million. This makes him sad, thinking he will never be a millionaire in his life. Regardless, he lists his wish of having his own home and the removal of his older brothers from his room. In the next scene, we're introduced to an escaped convict named Carl Quigley. It's revealed that he escaped from the jail on a rainy night and then went to an abandoned building where he had a hidden briefcase containing $1 million before his imprisonment. Currently, he arrives at a bank with the stolen money and meets the bank's president, Biderman, who used to be his money laundering partner. Carl wants him to launder his money so that the FBI doesn't question his purchases. Biderman initially refuses to return to this illegal business, but Carl threatens to kill his family if he does not comply. The president has no choice but to agree, so Carl instructs him to give the money to a man named Juice the next day. On the other hand, Preston cycles to the same bank to cash his $11 check. However, a lovely bank teller named Shay gently informs the boy that he must have a minimum amount of $200. As a result, Preston leaves the bank with the check, and as soon as he boards his bike, Butch snatches his check and cycles away. Preston then pursues his friend, but he ends up falling just behind Carl's car, causing his cycle to be crushed while reversing. Carl is now obligated to pay for the cycle, but before he can write any amount on the check, he spots a police car approaching. So he hastily hands a signed blank check to the kid and flees the scene. Preston returns home with his broken cycle, only to be chastised by his father. In addition, he is grounded for not caring for his belongings, but he does not tell his parents about the earlier incident. Upon going to his room, he uses his computer to fill out the check amount to $1 million and writes a random name on it. The very next day, he goes to the bank to cash it, but a chubby teller sends the boy to Biderman due to his huge transaction amount. Because the check bears Carl's signature, the bank's president misidentifies the child as Juice. Believing this is part of Carl's plan, Biderman fills Preston's bag with $1 million and lets him go. As he walks out of the bank, Preston bumps into Juice, but the man doesn't bother much about it. Upon entering Biderman's room, Juice introduces himself and asks for the money. Biderman quickly realizes his error and rushes outside in search of Preston, but in vain. Following this, Preston arrives home and searches the internet for houses for sale. After deciding on one, he contacts a real estate agent, converses with her using the computer's robot voice, and pays $300 for a house. Before finalizing the transaction, the agent requests Preston's name, which the kid changes to Macintosh. Preston is overjoyed because he's finally wealthy. just as he dreamt of. On the other hand, Carl learns about the situation and becomes enraged. He initially blames Biderman for his blunder, but he soon remembers the blank check he gave the kid, which makes him depressed. In order to locate the kid, 3 men decide to go to places where kids generally love to go. Meanwhile, Preston makes another purchase of a limousine service and asks the driver to pick him up. He then sneaks out of the house and meets his car driver, Henry. The driver initially believes the kid is joking, but after being handed some money, he apologizes and opens the door for him. Preston fabricates a story about the car being owned by his millionaire boss named Macintosh. After this, Henry takes him to every mall in town at his request and buys a plethora of clothes, toys, video games, and other items, filling his new home with them. He even gives Henry an expensive watch as a thank you for accompanying him. While driving back home, Preston notices Shay and pulls over to inform her that he'll soon be at the bank to deposit more than $200. After departing from Preston, Shay meets an unknown man and reports to him everything she knows about her workplace. She actually turns out to be an undercover FBI agent who's on a mission to catch money launderers in the bank. The next morning, Fred is about to drive to work, but his driveway is blocked by several goods-loading vehicles, and the workers are moving many goods into a neighboring house. Fred heads forward to investigate the matter, only to discover Preston ordering the people. He inquires as to what's going on, and Preston responds that he's begun working for Macintosh. The boy also orders the worker to clear the path for his father, who is taken aback to learn that his son wields such authority. Eventually, the moving process is completed, and we see the house has racetracks, a video game system, Preston's personal office, and even a water park. Preston and Henry spend the entire day together enjoying themselves. The news of the rich man moving into a new home spreads, and Shay also becomes aware of it. After learning about the way he spends his money, she decides to pay a visit to Macintosh to determine his source of income. Upon going to his house, she finds Preston and asks him about Macintosh. The boy pretends that Macintosh has a busy schedule and will be unable to see anyone. He soon changes the subject and invites her on a business date. At first, she objects, but when he claims himself to be Macintosh's financial manager, she agrees. Despite knowing about the work under Macintosh, Preston's father still refuses to let him go out on a date at night. In order to persuade him, Preston slyly whispers that he was about to show Fred's work prospects to Macintosh. Sensing that his son's relationship with a millionaire will benefit him, Fred lets his son do whatever he wants. Later at night, Preston and Shay go on a dinner date, and he presents her with an expensive necklace, claiming that it's from Macintosh. He addresses several personal questions to her by taking the name of his imaginary boss. After dinner, he takes her to a fountain, and the two have a great time together. Not long after, Carl and his group spot them and slowly approach them. When Preston notices this, he cleverly instructs Shay to race to the car and drives away. Before departing, Preston tells her that Macintosh is having his birthday party this weekend and invites her. Knowing that Macintosh will be there, she agrees to attend the party. Another day, Preston hires a party manager who charges him $10,000 for the service. With this large sum of money, she decides to organize a fancy dinner and keep the rest of the money in her pocket. Later that day, Henry is preoccupied with his friends, leaving Preston all alone. Bored, he cycles to the park and watches the other kids play, which prompts him to reflect on his past life. At some time, Carl and his group show up in the same park and spot Preston. The kid immediately cycles away after seeing them. A long chase begins in order to apprehend the boy, but the three of them are forced to return empty-handed when their car becomes stuck on top of other cars during the process. With all of their failed attempts, Biderman believes that stealing another $1 million would be easier than getting a kid. Following this, the trio devises a new strategy and kidnaps Preston's friend Butch. They force him to reveal Preston's name and address while holding him on the roof of a building. The birthday party is on the same night, and everything appears to be in order. Preston uses his financial clout to force his elder brothers to work for him. When his brothers learn about Shay, they address her as a gold digger, saying that she is with Preston only for the money. This makes him sad, so he goes to Henry and inquires about gold diggers. Coincidentally, Henry also confirms that some of his friends are with him only for his money, which makes Preston even sadder. Elsewhere, Shay and her team learn that McIntosh has no past records, leading them to deduce that he's a criminal attempting to conceal his identity. They then decide to apprehend the man tonight. Later in the party, the manager presents Preston with the party planning bill and cost, which totals $100,000, leaving him in shock. Preston goes to his room to check his balance, only to learn that he only has $332 left and that he cannot pay the manager what he owes for the party. Still checking on the computer, his father arrives and begins conversing with the person behind the chair, mistaking him for McIntosh. Because it's Preston's birthday, he requests that the so-called McIntosh send him home early. He spends some time talking about his son, admitting how he puts pressure on him and does not listen to him. After hearing all of this, Preston becomes emotional as he realizes how much his father cares for him. A few moments later, Preston turns around to find that his father has already left. He then goes in search of Henry, only to discover that he has left as well. Convinced of the gold digger thing, Preston gets upset and decides to end the party. He also informs the party manager that McIntosh is missing, which means that she will not be paid. Furious, the party manager makes a scene and orders everyone to leave as the party is over. After all of this, Preston is seen sitting alone in the house when he hears a bell ring. Thinking that it's Henry, he opens the door, but it's 3 thugs. When Carl demands his money, Preston scaredly reveals the truth. However, the man does not believe he spent $1 million in just 6 days. Just then, Biderman summons Carl for a private conversation and suggests that he take over the name McIntosh in order to inherit the new life just like he desired. While they're conversing, Preston sees this as his opportunity and begins running away. They get into a chase inside the house, but Preston, who knows every nook and cranny, outwits them. Despite this, Carl manages to capture him, but fortunately, the FBI arrives just in time, ordering everyone to freeze. The trio is then arrested for fraud, money laundering, and theft. Carl quickly declares that he's McIntosh, believing that assuming the false identity will grant him a new life. But instead, the FBI arrests him for numerous crimes. After learning that Shay is an FBI agent, Preston believes she cannot be his girlfriend. However, she proves it wrong by kissing him and asking him to call her after 10 years. Following this, the boy walks outside and meets Henry, who reveals that he had gone to get ice cream for the party. Since they can no longer work together, they bid each other farewell. In the final scene, Preston returns home and celebrates his birthday with his family happily.